What is up, guys? Wrestling Premiere is here. Alright, I've saved this one for a while. I didn't think of making it until about a few weeks ago, and initially, these were going to be two separate videos, but I just decided, you know what, screw it. Two videos in one. The plane ride from hell and the first week of WWE. Now, in these kinds of videos, the week, I don't go into detail with everything that happened that week, just notable things, something that might be memorable, who knows. Anyways, WWF in 2002 was a time of change. The brand split was in effect, Austin was starting to be phased out, The Rock started to be away from WWF longer and longer, and a massive influx of talent was brought into the company. So 2002 was a year of change, as clear as that. Also, 2002's roster is the most crazy roster I've seen. Like, 2002 and 2003's roster are the craziest rosters I've ever seen for a single company. Like, how do you have that much star power in one place? It's ridiculous. SmackDown was stacked, Raw was stacked, and it just made for some amazing shows. Yeah, some shows were disappointing and stuff like that, but still, it's a treat to watch this roster during this time period. Anyways, first up, I'm going to cover the plane ride from hell. If I missed something, comment it down below, but I assume that I'm going to cover everything. Okay, on May 5th, 2002, WWE decided to rent out an entire plane and have the entire roster on board. This was something that they used to do occasionally, but this time, though, it was different. You've never heard some wild wrestling stories happening on a plane, but this time, though, everything changed. As you may know, WWE had finished their tour of the UK, and the final show was Insurrection. And this was the flight back home. And to say this was a crazy story, well, it would be an understatement. After this wild ride, 2 men were fired, 1 man got his hair cut off, and the rest had one hell of a story to tell if they even remember it. Now, the reason why this ride was so wild was because there was an open bar. Many men drank and drank and drank, and so they were drunk. Justin Credible explained this in an interview back in 2013. Link is down below, and I quote, "Vince at the time was chartering flights. We weren't on commercial flights. We'd rent out a whole plane. We had a 747, all ours, meaning not only all the wrestlers, but also the TV crew. So we have every cameraman, all the girls that make the costumes, tour managers, everybody. A full plane of WWE people. Now with that comes, and I bet you Vince has not done it since, a full and open bar. And what I mean by that is a plane filled with alcoholic wrestlers at the end of a grueling tour. So think about it. It's like the last day of school. This was only the beginning. They were just drinking at this point, but this was where things would change. First up, let me mention Scott Hall and Mr. Perfect Curt Hennig. These two decided to have fun. They sprayed many on the flight with shaving cream. It was childish compared to the things that would come afterwards. Now, Hall himself, he didn't do much afterwards and he passed out. He fell unconscious and there were some harassment allegations by the stewardesses. One of them claimed that Scott Hall licked her face and he said some unkind words. I'd prefer not to say them. Here they are. And also, let me just say this right now. A lot of these guys were pilled up. X-Pac claimed that many guys on the plane took GHB. Next up is Goldust, Dustin Runnels. He already had some issues with management at this point, so this was another black mark on his record. He serenaded his ex-wife Terry Reynolds, and rumor has it that Goldust was drunk and he started to sing on the PA system of the plane, and he didn't stop until Jim Ross forced him to. And another thing, the stewardesses said that Goldust allegedly told one of them that he and her are gonna... Oh my god. Now, about this lawsuit, it probably didn't lead to much. I believe they settled out of court. But things would only get worse from here on. Next up is Ric Flair. Flair was wearing his freaking rope. He was walking towards the aisle of the plane naked. All he was wearing was the rope. Here's what the flight attendants saw. Pause the video and you'll see some weird incidents. Like, what can I say about this stuff? The fact that Ric Flair probably did all of that is horrifying. Okay, moving on from this bizarre story, let's mention one of the standout stories from this plane ride from hell. Brock Lesnar and Curt Hennig wrestling 30,000 feet in the air. As you may know, these guys were buddies. Seeing as they came out of Minnesota, it was clear that they were friends. During the flight, though, they decided to tussle. Both men were competitive and they weren't backing down. Here's what Justin Credible had to say about this. He spoke about the entire plane ride from hell on YouTube. You could check out that video. They weren't fighting at first, but they were very competitive, so they're just scraping along, like messing around. Then something happened where it got serious. It didn't come to blows, but you know the opening that they have on planes. Those openings are the emergency exit rows. Now, Brock's a wrestling shooter, and Kurt's a shooter kinda too. So they took it seriously. They didn't want to give in to each other. They went at it so hard, and Lesnar shot in and drove Hennig so hard into the side that they almost popped open the emergency exit 30,000 feet in the air. People, among them Dave Finlay, Triple H, and Paul Heyman, had to separate them. Now, this reminds me of another story that happened on the flight beforehand. Kurt Angle and Vince They went at it in the previous flight, but it wasn't like they were going to open the emergency exit. Hennig was seen as the one who was responsible for this, and he was released later that week. Just Incredible did say that they cooled down and they spoke afterwards. That's his words, not mine. And my personal favorite, Michael Hayes. Now, this isn't my favorite part of the story, but it's something that Hayes did beforehand. In an interview with YouShoot, X-Pac, and oh my god, this guy remembers the small things. Like, if you tell this guy what happened on January 25th, 1994, he'll tell you exactly what happened. X-Pac spoke about the moment Michael Hayes swung his thing out in front of Linda McMahon. Hayes almost pissed on Linda McMahon. He was all up trying to whip his out, stooped over, tugging at his trousers. He doesn't know it's Linda. He thinks he's at the bathroom. He's like, Hayes' voice, wait a minute, wait a minute. He just keeps saying, wait a minute, over and over again. Finally, somebody led him away. And then, to make matters worse, this is my favorite story to come out of the plane ride from hell. He made an enemy out of Bradshaw. Let me give you some background. The previous night, JBL had faced X-Pac, and during the match, he was busted open. X-Pac explained this, and I quote, I had a match with Bradshaw JBL for the pay-per-view in England, and he got some color. So he had this big hole and gash on his head. So he's sitting there sleeping, bandaged up, getting some Z's, and Michael Hayes comes up shouting, hey, you f***ing redneck, and pops him right in the forehead. Just Incredible said that the punch opened the cut, and JBL bled profusely, and basically, Michael Hayes ruined his suit. X-Pac then explained what he did afterwards, and this is the best part of the story, and I quote, so Hayes is out cold, and he's got that thing in a ponytail, that mullet, you know. He was still rocking the mullet, and I said, somebody get me a pair of scissors. I remember Lawler over there just giggling, and everyone was like, no, you're not gonna do it. I grabbed those scissors like I was pulling a pair of taped brass knucks out of my tights, and everybody's looking, and they don't think I'm gonna do it. I grabbed that tail, and I lifted up, and I just went whack, and the whole plane erupted, like, yeah! I freaking love this story. Like, they just decided to get revenge, and they absolutely hated it. Now, once Hayes reached customs, he flipped out. And X-Pac said that he put it on the wall the following night on Raw as if it was an accomplishment. Jim Ross on his Ross Report released a statement regarding the plane ride from hell, and I quote, the flight was about 7 hours in length and at times was low-lighted by a handful of people who consumed too much alcohol and consequently acted like children whose parents were away and left the liquor cabinet unlocked. The conduct of this inebriated minority was unacceptable and will not be tolerated. Procedures have been put into place to ensure such conduct does not occur in the future. The bottom line is this. Yours truly is the person in charge of the talent roster, and the buck stops with me. We will do all we humanly can to solve the problem. Anyways, let me give you a quick summary. Curt Hennig and Scott Hall got released later that week. Goldust was punished, and they refused to renew his contract the following year, and Brock Lesnar wasn't punished. Many other guys weren't punished. Michael Hayes couldn't really do anything about it, and overall, this was a horrifying yet hilarious story. Okay, moving on. Right now, I'm going to cover the week WWF became WWE. I'm not going through every match and segment, just some notable ones. And this is the second week WWE video. My last one was on the week WWE went HD, and it's one of my more unique videos. Like, how many people make a week WWE went HD video? Anyways, World Wrestling Federation wasn't the first company to use the WWF initials. It was Worldwide Fund for Nature. In 1994, they entered a law-binding agreement that allowed for the World Wrestling Federation to use the WWF initials in a fleeting way, like WWF Champion, not the WWF. Like, they weren't allowed to say that. They were allowed to use it in ways that wouldn't confuse other people. This thing would heat up in 1998 when WWF changed their logo. The original WWF took this to court, and it was later ruled in their favor, seeing as the World Wrestling Federation took the domain name of WWF.com, and it was basically clear that they breached the agreement. And so that's how WWF became WWE. Not just because Vince decided to call it World Wrestling Entertainment. It was because they lost a lawsuit. And so, World Wrestling Entertainment was born. They launched a promotion campaign called Get the F Out, which is pretty genius because you basically changed the name of the company and you made money in the process of doing so. On the May 6, 2002 episode of Raw, this intro aired. I'm pretty sure this brings back a lot of memories for you guys. Jim Ross and Jerry Lawler welcomed us to the show, and right away Trish Stratus made her way down to the ring to face Jazz in a women's championship match. Oh, and it was no DQ. So the first match in WWE history is this. Trish was all over Jazz in the beginning, we want puppy chants intensified, and Stevie started to get involved. This gave Jazz enough time to get back in it, and she pounced on Trish with kicks and double arm suplexes. Jazz continued to be in control, choking Trish and slamming her face first on the mat. Suddenly though, Trish made a comeback and she kicked Jazz right in the head before hitting the Stratusfaction. The ref counted, but then Stevie pulled him from out the ring before super kicking Trish. Jazz then covered Trish, and so she retained the title. Right after the match though, Bubba Dudley ran down to the ring and he assaulted Stevie and Jazz before bringing in a table. He delivered the Bubba Bomb before covering Richards to become the new hardcore champion. He didn't have much time to celebrate as Raven entered the ring and he connected with the DDT to become the new champ. All of a sudden, Justin Credible super kicked Raven to win the title, and then Crash drop kicked Credible and he captured the title. He wouldn't celebrate for long as Crash himself was on the receiving end of a Bubba Ray trash can. Trish Stratus then covered him and she was the new champ. Bubba didn't take this lightly, and just as he was going to do something about it, Jazz brought out a fire extinguisher. She blinded Bubba and he slammed the hell out of Trish through the table. Stevie Richards covered her and we were back to where we were. Bubba then realized what he did and he took Trish to the back. A few minutes later, the NWO came out. Big Show once again turned heel for the millionth time 2 weeks earlier, and he was out here to explain why he joined the group. Now, personally, if we make a video on every Big Show heel turn and face turn, I feel like it'll be an hour long. Like, we have to explain the backstories of every single heel turn. There's like 35 of them. Anyways, he accidentally said WWF, and he threatened the fans who said what, stating that he'll break their backs. He said that he main evented WrestleMania 2 years earlier, and 2 months earlier at WrestleMania, he was at a restaurant picking up the fans' ugly kids. He said that he wasn't even on WrestleMania X8, and he was competing on Heat. He blamed this on Austin, saying that 2 years ago, he wasn't at WrestleMania, and Big Show main evented the show as a result. He called himself a walking, talking, pissed off giant, and the NWO just got bigger with his inclusion. And the bottom line is that neither Austin nor Ric Flair are going to do anything about it. The Raw owner interrupted and he asked Big Show if that's the reason why he's pissed off. He said that he wishes he had Big Show's gifts, but nonetheless he's a 16-time champ by working hard, and if Big Show has a problem, then he should look at himself in a 7-foot mirror. He then booked the NWO in a matchup against Bradshaw, himself, and Stone Cold Steve Austin. Scott Hall wasn't taken aback to this surprise, and he promised a NWO surprise for the end of the night, stating that it's going to change the history of this company forever. Meanwhile, Booker T went to 7-Eleven. He complained about the lack of Booker T cups, and he threatened RVD before discovering Goldust. Booker threatened to call the cops, but Goldust just wanted to get to him. The 5-time champ called him a creep before Goldie asked for them to talk things through. He then asked Booker for a sip of his Slurpee, and he'll give Booker a butt of his wiener. Booker was taken aback to this, and he stormed off. Later that night, Hollywood Hogan came out with the Undertaker's motorcycle and he provoked him. Hogan called out the Undertaker and he did come out. Now, Deadman Inc. was fuming. As a matter of fact, he was at a loss of words for a moment. He threatened Hogan, but he was interrupted by the champ who just said blah blah blah. He then asked the Undertaker if he's going to do something about it, or he's just going to stand there like the he is. Hogan taunted the Undertaker and the dead man ran the hell out of there. You can go check out this video, one of the best videos I made on this channel. It's about the Undertaker's big evil run from November of 2001 all the way to July 2002. At the end of the night, Ric Flair accused Bradshaw of being involved with the NWO, and Bradshaw didn't take this lightly. This was due to the fact that Ric Flair found in the locker room a Kane mask, which X-Pac stole, and a APA hat. He refused to explain himself, and it was time for the main event. Meanwhile, Hogan destroyed the Undertaker's 18-wheeler, and then all of a sudden, a black limousine arrives, and it's Kevin Nash. JR knew that the NWO was up to no good. In the beginning, Austin whooped ass. He was unleashing hell on X-Pac before he managed to tag in Scott Hall. The Bionic Redneck still had momentum, and he nearly hit the stunner before demanding the Big Show gets tagged in. His request was accepted, and the Big Show overpowered the Texas Rattlesnake before he tried fighting back. Big Show hit the back body drop on Austin before Bradshaw tagged himself in. There was a bit of tension between the two, but then Scott Hall got involved. X-Pac, however, entered the match and he was on the receiving end of a power slam and a fall-away slam. X-Pac bounced back with a spinning heel kick, and once again, the Big Show entered the match. He dominated. He targeted the head, and Bradshaw was busted open. He tried showing his fighting spirit, but the Big Show knocked him down. The NWO tagged in one another before the Giant re-entered the match. He delivered some devastating blows to Bradshaw before tagging X-Pac in. He did try fighting back, but he was trapped in the NWO's corner. He started to make a comeback by booting and elbowing X-Pac, and it was chaos on the outside. Inside, Bradshaw managed to connect with a clothesline from hell, but the Big Show dragged him out of the ring. He then chokeslammed him through the announce table, and Austin tried fighting the Big Show, but the 3 NWO members jumped him. He fought back and he hit a double stunner on both Hall and X-Pac. He then wanted a piece of the Big Show and they fought one another, and initially it was Big Show who had the upper hand. The Texas Rattlesnake bounced back, however, by stomping a mud hole. He nearly hit the stunner, but Big Show pushed him into the referee, and Ric Flair then entered the ring with a chair. That amounted to nothing as the Big Show attempted the chokeslam. Austin low-blowed him, and he finally connected with a stunner. He went for the cover, but the ref was down. He tried reviving the referee, but once he turned around, Flair blasted him with a steel chair, turning heel in the process. JR was befuddled, and Flair continued his assault. The Raw owner then informed Austin that he's facing him at Big Show at Judgment Day in a handicap match. He then locked Austin in the figure 4 as Big Show was enjoying this, and Raw went off the air. That is Raw in a nutshell, like most notable things that happened that night. There probably is something that I didn't mention, just comment it down below. Right now, we move on to SmackDown. At the beginning of the show, Stacy Keibler introduced Mr. McMahon. Asshole chants intensified as the owner of the company grabbed a mic. He didn't like the fact that they used this kind of language in the presence of a lady, and he asked for Stacy to bring another mic, and as you can see here, you know what his intentions were. He called her a model employee, and he called Triple H a jerk. He mentioned Triple H distracting Jericho the previous week, and asshole chants once again intensified. He said that Triple H will do what he says, and he will do it with a smile on his face, and if Triple H doesn't do what he says, then there will be hell to pay. All of a sudden, Triple H interrupted. Now, the game couldn't be within 10 feet of the boss because, you know, social distancing. It was actually because Mr. McMahon threatened him, stating that if he does come within 10 feet, then there'll be hell to pay. Triple H lived up to the words on the back of his t-shirt by approaching Vince and calling him on his bluff. He ripped into Vince and he said that Stacy would like a young stud that pays attention to her, or maybe an old wrinkled man with bad breath and a toupee. And he warned the boss, stating that if he gets in his face, then he'll speed up the process of Vince dying. The boss refused to be spoken like that and he teased a fight, but then all of a sudden SmackDown's heels surrounded the game and they attacked him. He tried to fight back, but the numbers were too much. Then Y2J came out and he sat on a chair to witness the assault. The game tried fighting, but that amounted to nothing, and Y2J blasted him with a steel chair. Jericho then locked him in the walls, and Vince announced that Triple H is facing Chris Jericho at Judgment Day inside Hell in a Cell. Which reminds me, Chris Jericho title reign this week, I promise. Later that night, Triple H faced Reverend Devon. This was also Batista's debut. Devon introduced us to Deacon Batista, who was protecting the Devon Building Fund. Triple H, meanwhile, was clearly banged up, but that didn't stop him and he went straight at it. In the beginning, Triple H was all over Devon, hitting right, the back body drop, and the spine buster. Devon, however, bounced back by dropping the game right onto the turnbuckle, and he targeted the injured forehead. Deacon got involved, and Triple H was busted open. Devon continued to dominate, hitting an elbow and a clothesline from the top rope, and it was until Devon missed a flying headbutt that the game started to make a comeback. He had a neck breaker, and Deacon once again got involved. Triple H, however, outsmarted him, and from there it was a mess. He tried hitting the pedigree on Devon, but Jericho capitalized on the distracted ref by blasting Triple H with the donation box. Devon covered the game, and he won! Devon has beaten Triple H. In the main event, Hulk Hogan teamed up with Edge to face Chris Jericho and Kurt Angle. Like, the star power in this match, I don't know what to say about it. It's immense. Anyways, in the beginning, Angle delivered a few rights to Hogan, but he no-sold them. He delivered some rights of his own, and he delivered a few elbows. Edge was tagged in, and he connected to the spinning heel kick. Angle responded with a belly-to-belly before Jericho was tagged in. Y2J would have the upper hand for long, as Edge delivered a missile drop kick, and he slammed him face first. Jericho continued to struggle until Angle got involved. He delivered a headlock slam, and Angle was brought in. He hit the snap suplex, and he tried to wear down Edge by locking him in a rear chin lock. Edge tried fighting back, but this didn't end well for neither of them, as they hit a crossbody on one another. They both tagged in, their partners, and Hogan was on the hot tag sequence. He kicked both of their asses, and when Jericho tried delivering rights, he hulked up. You know the sequence, rights and rights and rights before the boot and the leg drop. Angle, however, pulled the ref right out of the ring, and he tried fighting Hogan, but Edge got involved and he hit the execution. Meanwhile, Jericho low-blowed Hogan, and he locked him in the walls. He seemed like he had the match won, but then all of a sudden, Triple H with a sledgehammer came out, and he blasted everyone in sight. Hogan, the referee, Edge, Jericho, Angle, everyone. Vince then came out and he asked for the game to hit him with the sledgehammer. He taunted Triple H and he swung the damn thing. Vince managed to duck, and Jericho from out of nowhere blasted Triple H with a steel chair, and SmackDown went off the air with Chris Jericho on top of the game. Now, before I end this video, let me just say I'm looking to make a video on Tough Enough and perhaps Game Show NXT. But I need your help in deciding which one I should do. Like, should I do Tough Enough Season 1 or NXT Season 1 first? Which one do you guys want? Because I want to cover the entire season. Just comment down below, NXT Season 1 or Tough Enough Season 1. And that's it for this video. Make sure you hit a Walls of Jericho on the like button and perhaps a pedigree on the subscribe button. Peace. I'm out.